In the chilling vastness of space, silence was abruptly shattered by the sudden crackle of a long-dormant communication channel springing to life. On the main display of the Galactic Council's observation deck, an image flickered into view, a face etched with lines of determination and bearing the weight of untold stories. The voice that followed was calm yet piercing, resonating through the high-tech chamber with an unmistakable tone of resolve. "This is Commander Frank Derringer of the Human Resistance. To those who thought us vanquished, know this: we have returned. Our fight for justice begins today." As the transmission faded, the room fell into a stunned silence, the message resonating like the ominous foreboding of an impending storm. In the desolate vacuum of space, an abrupt cacophony of alarms shattered the silence. Aboard the Galactic Council's sleek cruiser, crew members sprang into action, their eyes widening as they stared at the sensor panels that blinked urgently. The ship's captain, a seasoned officer named Gorvin, stood rooted to the spot as the control room hummed with the urgency of a newly detected anomaly. "What in the cosmos is that?" he demanded, squinting at the display which showed hundreds of ships materializing from the shadow of the HFY Nebula. His communications officer, a young recruit named Tella, adjusted the frequency, her hands trembling slightly. "I'm attempting to establish contact. There's a transmission coming through." The static dissipated, and the voice that filled the room was calm, resolute, and chillingly familiar. "This is Fleet Commander Frank Derringer of the Human Resistance. We have returned." On the human flagship, Frank stood before a vast window looking out into the star-studded darkness. His reflection showed a man altered by time and steadfast determination. Around him, the crew moved with precision, each member expertly carrying out their tasks. Frank turned to face his officers, his gaze sweeping over the faces of those who had been born in exile, trained for this very moment. "Today, we reclaim our place in the universe," Frank declared, his voice echoing through the command deck. "Our ancestors may have been defeated, but their spirit, their will to fight for justice, lives on in each of us." Lieutenant Mara, Frank's trusted second-in-command, approached him, her expression tinged with measured concern. "Commander, the Council's defenses will be on high alert now. Our element of surprise—" Frank interrupted her with a raised hand. "Mara, our technology has advanced beyond the Council's wildest calculations. They don't see us coming until it's too late." He gestured to the holographic map displaying their tactical approach. "We strike swiftly and silently. We disable their communication arrays first. No calls for reinforcements." As they approached their first target, a palpable sense of anticipation filled the air. Frank's eyes briefly closed, visions of Earth's destruction a millennium ago flickering behind his eyelids. Upon opening them, he radiated a renewed sense of purpose. "Engage cloaking devices," he commanded, his voice unwavering. "Cloaking engaged. All systems are green," a technician confirmed. The fleet, now invisible to both the naked eye and sensors, moved closer to the unsuspecting galactic outposts. Mara monitored the displays, her training keeping her composed, yet her heart pounded with the gravity of their mission. "In 3 minutes, we'll be within their perimeter," she updated, glancing at Frank for affirmation. "On my mark," Frank replied, his finger poised over the command button. Suddenly, Tyla's voice burst through the intercom, her tone laced with urgency. "Commander, we've intercepted a transmission. They're mobilizing, but they're not sure where to aim." Frank's lips twisted into a grim smile. "Perfect. They're blind and scattered. All units prepare to engage. For Earth, for humanity." The fleet surged forward as a formidable force. The ghosts of Earth, once thought vanquished, now delivering their first strike for justice. As the ships closed in on their unsuspecting targets, the crew's resolve hardened. Today, history would witness the resilience of humanity. Silhouetted against the backdrop of distant stars, the human fleet executed their plan with precision that spoke of long preparation and deep resolve. Their ships, cloaked in shadows cast by the latest stealth technology, appeared from nowhere, leaving the Galactic Council's patrols scrambling in disarray. The first strike was swift. A galactic scout ship disabled before it could raise an alarm. "Capture, don't destroy," Frank Derringer commanded from the bridge of the flagship, his voice calm but firm. His crew, trained to perfection, obeyed instantly, using electromagnetic pulses to incapacitate enemy vessels without loss of life. "We have one chance at this," Frank reminded his second-in-command, Lieutenant Mara, as they prepared to board the captured galactic communications ship. Their mission was critical: to tap into the galactic network and broadcast the truth about Earth's destruction. Space between the captured ship and their flagship was quickly bridged by a pressurized tunnel. Frank led the boarding team, their movements silent in the vacuum of space but resounding in intent. As they entered the communications hub, a tense voice crackled through their combs. "Commander, we've got company. A patrol unit is en route to our location." "Understood," Frank responded, his focus unwavering. "Mara, initiate the broadcast. We need to get another shot." Mara nodded, her fingers flying over the holographic controls. The data they sent out was explosive. Decrypted files, videos, and testimonies detailing the Council's betrayal. "Broadcasts live across the galaxy," she confirmed, a hint of triumph in her tone. Frank watched the screens as faces of various alien races appeared, their expressions changing from indifference to shock and then to anger as the truth of a 1,000-year-old conspiracy unfolded before them. This was more than a military operation. It was a battle for the hearts and minds of the galaxy. "Commander, the patrol units are demanding surrender," Mara reported, her voice tense. "Let them," Frank said, his eyes on the live feed showing crowded marketplaces and council halls filled with uproar. "It's too late for them to stop the truth." As the galactic forces boarded their ship, Frank and his team were ready. They didn't resist, allowing themselves to be taken into custody. The chaos their revelations had triggered was now beyond the control of a few patrol ships. In the detention area of a galactic cruiser, Frank met with the captain, a rigid Centauri whose scales bristled with disapproval. "You've caused quite an upheaval, human," the captain hissed. "That was the point," Frank replied coolly. "The galaxy deserved the truth." The captain sneered but looked uncertain, his eyes flicking to the screens still playing the leaks. "What do you hope to achieve with this?" "Chaos." "Justice," Frank stated simply, "not just for humanity, but for all who suffered under lies." His words seemed to penetrate the captain's doubts, leaving a thoughtful frown on his reptilian face. As Frank was led back to his cell, he felt a surge of hope. They had struck a significant blow today, not with weapons, but with undeniable truth, and the galaxy had listened. Now it was up to those who heard to decide the path forward. Meanwhile, back on the human flagship, Mara watched the galactic fleets retreating from their screens, a small smile playing on her lips. "The first move is ours," she murmured, already planning their next steps in the galactic game of chess they had ignited. Amid the enveloping darkness of space, the dimly lit cabin of Frank Derringer's ship thrummed with quiet tension. The holographic map in the center flickered, displaying the positions of galactic forces converging on their location. However, Frank's attention was fixed not on the looming battle, but on a blinking message icon, a direct communication request from Counselor Lyra, an influential member of the Galactic Council known for her dissenting views. "Commander Derringer," Lyra's image materialized, her tone urgent yet composed. "What I am about to share could change the course of this conflict." Frank nodded, his face betraying none of the skepticism simmering within. "I'm listening, Counselor. But make it quick." Lyra glanced off screen, her voice dropping to a whisper. "There's a faction within the Council, Commander. They orchestrated Earth's destruction to consolidate their power. I can prove it, but we must meet. Alone." Weighing the risks, Frank agreed to the rendezvous at a neutral space station, hidden from the prying sensors of the Council's fleet. The station, a relic of trade routes long abandoned, offered the anonymity they required. Upon arrival, their solitary footsteps echoed through the station's stark, utilitarian corridors as they met in a derelict conference room. Lyra handed Frank a data chip. "This contains decrypted communications between the orchestrators. It's irrefutable proof of their guilt." Frank inserted the chip into his handheld device, scanning the contents. The evidence was damning. Detailed plans of the attack, falsified threats posed by Earth, and celebrations of their subsequent rise to power. Why help us, Lyra? Frank inquired, rearing the counselor with newfound respect yet retaining a trace of doubt. Justice, Commander? Many of us on the council were deceived. We seek to restore the council's integrity, Lyra replied, her eyes earnest. Grasping the significance of the evidence, Frank realized this could be the pivotal moment. This could sway the galaxy in our favor, but it's your word against theirs. We need more than just data. Lyra nodded in agreement. I propose a public tribunal. Expose them under the full scrutiny of the galaxy. It's risky, but it's the only way to ensure a fair hearing. Frank considered the suggestion. A tribunal would offer a platform to present their case to the galaxy, potentially turning public opinion against the rogue faction. However, it could also jeopardize their newfound allies within the council. All right, we'll do it, Frank decided. Prepare your testimony. We'll need more than documents. We need voices that the galaxy trusts. As they parted ways, Frank returned to his ship, the weight of the impending challenge bearing down on him. The journey back was contemplative, with Frank engrossed in strategizing their next move. Back aboard his flagship, Frank convened his top advisors. We have a new plan, he declared, his voice steady and commanding. We're going to call for a tribunal. It's time the entire galaxy knew the truth. The advisors murmured among themselves, aware of the plan's risks, but united by a sense of resolve. This was their opportunity to strike, not with weapons, but with the power of words. As the fleet adjusted its course, Frank gazed out into the vastness of space. The stars twinkled with possibilities, each a silent witness to the unfolding drama that would determine humanity's fate. The dimly lit chamber aboard the Galactic Council's flagship served as a stark backdrop for the historic ceasefire negotiations. Frank Derringer sat across from Counselor Lyra. Their two forms a contrast in more than just appearance. One, a rugged human marked by years of resistance. The other, a sleek, silver-skinned Galian, her eyes reflecting a galaxy's worth of secrets. Commander Derringer, Lyra began, her voice steady. Your actions have ignited a spark across countless systems. You have our attention, but what is it you truly seek? Vengeance or justice? Frank's gaze was unwavering. Justice, he replied firmly. We want the truth acknowledged and the records corrected. Earth was not the aggressor. Lyra nodded, turning to her aide who handed her a datapad glowing with encrypted files. These documents were buried deep within the Council's archives. They'd prove a faction within our own ranks manipulated the evidence that led to Earth's destruction. Frank took the datapad, his fingers brushing against Lyra's, a symbolic gesture of newfound trust. This will change everything, he murmured. Yes, but revealing this truth will split the Council. Some will fight to keep their secrets buried. As Frank studied the files, a plan formed. Then we must bring this to light in a way they cannot ignore. We need a public tribunal, a trial for all the galaxy to see. Lyra considered this, her expression unreadable. A public tribunal could indeed unite public opinion against the conspirators, but the risk? It's one we have to take, Frank cut in. His resolve was clear, mirroring the steel of the ships that had carried his people back across the stars. Can I count on your support? You can, Lyra confirmed, her voice a whisper of alliance that carried the weight of worlds. The next days were a whirlwind of preparation. Frank's team worked alongside Lyra's staff, drafting the presentation of the evidence, outlining the charges against the faction, and securing the tribunal's platform. The galactic media, ever hungry for scandal and drama, broadcast snippets and speculations that fanned the flames of public discourse. On the day of the tribunal, the Great Hall was filled with representatives from hundreds of planets, their myriad forms casting a kaleidoscope of shadows on the walls. Frank stood at the podium, the galaxy watching. Members of the Galactic Council, beings of the cosmos, Frank began, his voice echoing through the chamber. Today we stand not to condemn but to correct. We present evidence not only to clear the name of Earth, but to shine a light on those who deceive and manipulate for their own gain. The evidence was irrefutable. Holograms displayed communications between the conspirators, financial records of their transactions, and falsified reports that had condemned Earth. The hall was steeped in silence as the gravity of the deceit settled over the assembly. Counselor Lyra took the floor, her tone solemn. This tribunal is faced with a choice: continue the legacy of deceit or forge a new path of transparency and trust. We must decide what kind of galaxy we wish to be. The debate that followed was intense. Accusations flew, defenses were mounted, but the evidence was too compelling. The tribunal concluded with a landmark decision: the exoneration of Earth and the formal censure and removal of the conspirators from their positions of power. As Frank left the podium, a chorus of support rose from the assembly, a sound of unity that resonated through the chamber. This was the justice he had sought, not wrought by vengeance but by the unveiling of truth. His heart was heavy with the cost of this victory, but hopeful for the future of humanity among the stars. The sky above Zephyria was ablaze with fireworks, each burst of color reflecting off the glassy surfaces of the city's towering structures. Below, the streets thronged with people from all walks of life, united in celebration. Frank Derringer watched from the balcony of the newly established Human Galactic Liaison Office, a building that symbolized the new era of human participation in galactic affairs. Turning away from the spectacle, Frank joined the gathering inside where leaders and representatives from various planets mingled. The room buzzed with a myriad of languages, the air thick with the promise of new beginnings. "Commander Derringer," a voice called. Frank turned to see Ambassador Talia, a Plenarian whose planet had also once faced the Council's wrath. Her luminous eyes mirrored a respect born of shared struggles. "Your speech today," she said, "it sparked hope, not just for humans but for all species oppressed under the old Council." Frank nodded, feeling the weight of her words. "We've been given a rare second chance, Ambassador. It's not just about rebuilding but redefining who we want to be in this galaxy." The buzz of conversations faded as a young aide approached, her expression earnest. "Commander, the Council has sent the final draft of the Peace and Cooperation Treaty. Your review is needed before the midnight signing." Taking the tablet, Frank scanned the document. Each clause spoke of a future where Earth's children would never again face obliteration. Yet his mind raced with the logistical nightmares of ensuring the treaty's terms were upheld. He added a note for a mandatory review every 5 years, a safeguard for the generations to come. "Commander, if I may?" the aide asked, her voice tentative. "There's a message from Zephyria's surface. They've named the first school after you." A smile broke across Frank's face, a rare moment of personal pride washing over him. "Tell them I'm honored, but suggest they name it after the planet. It's Zephyria that nurtured our people back from the brink, not me." As midnight approached, Frank addressed the gathering. His voice carried over the crowd, clear and steady. "Tonight, as we sign this treaty, we turn over a new leaf in the galaxy's history book. Let it be known that humanity stands for resilience and justice. But let it also show that we strive for peace and unity with all of you." Applause erupted, resonant and hopeful. The representatives lined up to sign the treaty, each signature a seal on humanity's vows for the future. After the ceremony, Frank stepped out onto the balcony once more. The fireworks had ended, but the stars shone brilliantly, each one a silent witness to Earth's legacy and Zephyria's promise. He took a deep breath of the crisp night air, his heart steady with the knowledge that while the path ahead was uncharted, it was filled with potential. "Commander," Mara's voice came through his communicator. "All teams are ready for the next phase of integration." "Proceed," Frank replied, his gaze fixed on the horizon. "And Mara, let's make sure we keep our course true." "Always, Commander," she responded, a smile in her voice. As the night deepened, Frank remained outside, the cold not bothering him. This was a new beginning not just for humanity, but for all species willing to bridge the divides. And as the architect of this new era, he was ready to lead not by conquest, but by cooperation.